Hey everyone, Sleepy Reader here with my comic book thoughts in the countdown style. But before I dive in, I just want to mention a few things. I want to thank Bullseye Bob of Everything Comics for having me as a guest on his Saturday show. So I will definitely link that down below. We actually recorded, I think, for close to an hour, and he had to cut a lot out. I don't know if he'll do a little outtakes video later where we discuss Daredevil. But anyway, it was great fun. We reviewed some of the comics of the week and gave some mini reviews to some of the other comics. And it's interesting to be there with another person versus what I'm used to doing, which is staring at myself in the screen and doing my best to imagine that I'm talking to other people. Anyway, Bob's a great guy. I really enjoyed doing that with him, and I hope anyone who hasn't checked out his channel yet, I hope you'll check it out. I think he has this great personal history video that I mentioned to you guys before, and he has his weekly Comics with My Coffee kind of review show. And he also is on Bueller's Comics, Coffee, and Comments show, which I think came out this morning, Monday morning. It comes out every early Monday morning. And he and Bueller make a great team there. So the other kind of fun thing that happened to me comic book community-wise is I got a Christmas card in the mail all the way from jolly old England from Raza. Her channel's called Laraza. Sadly, she has recorded only a few videos in the past year or two since she had a baby. Now I think nearly 2 years old. And but we in the past have done a few hangouts, and she is one of the people I've met in person. When I was lucky enough to be in London, we spent an afternoon together, and Rasa showed me around comic book shops and interesting coffee shops and things like that in London. And so and she's an artist and posted on Twitter all her Inktober work. And now she sent me this teeny tiny mini zine that has all her Inktober sketches, Inktober 2019. This was very clever of her, a great keepsake. So I think, what have we got, 30 drawings. And she decided this year to work in color, and there's definitely like a sense of humor and stuff going on in all her drawings beyond just the art of capturing all these animals and other creatures. So I am so appreciative that she sent this to me, and I wanted to show you all what it looked like. You should follow Laraza on Twitter. I think she's just at Laraza, but if she's something else, I'll put her Twitter handle down below and her YouTube channel down below, just in case she ever makes a comeback. You should subscribe to her. So yeah, that was a big pleasant surprise. So my first and so far best Christmas present, you can say. So on to the comic books. There were 12 this week. There was one that I'm behind on. That was Doom Patrol, so I won't be including that. There was also this Frank Miller, Grandpa is the name of the artist. I forget his first name right at the moment. The art looks really cool. I just didn't get around to reading that. I also think, I don't know if you'll see many videos from me in the next 2 to 3 weeks because of the holidays and such. Maybe I'll manage to bang out something, but don't worry if you don't see stuff from me for a few weeks. I will be back. So, actually, this was kind of a week of turnarounds, things that I expected to really like. A few of them I did not. And then I had a large chunk of comics that I really liked, and those were kind of hard to put in order. And you keep feeling your ordering is unfair, but I've set this task of putting them in the countdown, and it is fun. The number one was totally clear, so that helped a lot. If you've already watched Bob's video, you probably know which one is my number one. But I did not cover all these comics in his video, and I do things a little differently in this video than I did with Bob. So in at number 12, my biggest kind of disappointment is Trees. Or I should say Trees, Three Fates by Warren Ellis, by Jason Howard. Two very talented guys. I don't know, is there only one more issue of this? I'm thinking I should drop it, but if there's only one or two more issues, I guess I should keep getting it. But frankly, other than someone got shot and then some more people got shot and the woman is seeing the ghost, or I don't know if it's in her head or a ghost or somehow scientifically created by the trees, but apparently the ghost of her husband or lover who died getting crushed by a tree right as he was dumping her. So as a reminder, all of this takes place in a sort of Russian outback village where our heroine is the local, I think she's the local sheriff. And some kind of crime has happened, some kind of cover-up's going on. I really don't know what's going on. And I guess the capital sin for me these days in a monthly comic is not knowing what's going on at all, being totally adrift. There's certain ways at which, an author can hold back stuff and let you know that you should be trying to figure it out, but this didn't feel like that. It just felt like I was out on my own without any sort of enough clues to follow. And part of the problem might be because of reading it monthly, and so then they're saying to me, read it in the trade, so I ought to drop it. The poor comic book creators have to deal with two audiences, right? The people who buy comics serialized in a more expensive form than in the collected trades, and they want those people to help support their project and keep their money flowing. But if they don't serve those people, like me, then they're kind of in trouble. So Sarah and the Royal Stars had the same problem in the sense of, I just don't know, I can't grasp a hold of enough of what's going on in the pieces. I actually understood a lot more in this than in Trees. And I love a lot of the sort of fantasy ideas in here, and the art is really good. So I kind of feel bad ranking it low, but I kept, it's only a 20 or 22 page comic, and I kept putting it down, picking up back later. It's like I'm too adrift here for my attention to stay on it. Whether this will all make sense in a trade or whether it's just being written too hastily with not enough thought about what the audience knows versus what the author knows, I'm not sure. So I think I will drop this. I thought it was only going to be a 5-issue series, but it's to be continued. Maybe that's because it's been selling well, and maybe it'll improve a lot. But if it does, I'll get it in trades. I will keep an eye out for this artist, not listed on the front, but Audrey Mock and the colorist Raul Angulo, they both did an exemplary job. The bigger comic book companies should be jumping on these talents and getting them to work for them, or creators at Image or what have you. This artist would be an excellent artist for one of those Conan spin-off books, like about Belit or Valeria or something like that. I'm not sure if she's right for Conan, at least the way she draws here, because her stuff is a bit less hard-edged, I guess you'd say. But anyway, fantastic artist. In fact, because I love the art so much, I kind of wanted to rank this higher, but the truth is I had trouble reading it. I enjoyed looking at it, but I had trouble reading it. I didn't have any trouble reading Dragonfly and Dragonfly Man, but I just sort of didn't care a whole lot about the story. This is that series that was called Wrong Earth before, where there's a lighthearted Batman-like world, but it's Dragonfly Man, kind of like Batman 66, and then the dark, grim world. But as portrayed, a lot maybe is on the failure of the colorist. The colors of the Dragonfly Man world, the lighthearted world, should be more lighthearted, but it was pretty hard to tell when you were in the lighthearted world and not in the lighthearted world. suppose the artist could have shifted his style a little more too. But I mean, you can see there's things are a little more slightly more cartoony in that world, and definitely they are in the script. But the colorist kind of let go. But what the interaction between the two worlds hasn't happened yet, already in issue 2. So kind of wondering, well, what's the point of these two parallel stories? I'm sure it will eventually pay off. I'm not sure whether to dump this now or not. Most Ahoy comics, which this is an Ahoy comic, have really pleased me in the end. So maybe I should give it a bit longer. I really liked the first volume called Wrong Earth. So those were the 3 that disappointed me, especially against expectations. And all the rest I really enjoyed, some against expectations. For instance, although I've been enjoying most of Savage Sword of Conan, so we're now at this is number 9, Dragonfly, the Dragonfly story. Dragonfly Man and Dragonfly was at number 10. So at number 9 is Savage Sword of Conan, and the creative teams keep changing on these, and this issue was going to be the artist, I think Frank Thierry. Is it Frank? Yes, Frank Thierry. It's not artist, sorry, writer. And he's not a writer that I've had a lot of good luck with. So I just had low expectations. But I ended up really feeling he did a great job on a Conan one and done story. A story where things are not what they seem, and where Conan goes off and encounters a kind of magical... I mean, he always encounters some kind of wizard or magic or sorceress situation. And this situation was a little different. So it's hard in Conan to do a new variation on stuff that's already been done. And I thought this did a really good job. I won't spoil it because it is kind of a big reveal. And kind of teaches Conan a lesson, I guess. If Conan learns lessons, he's a very intelligent guy. What I did not like too much was the art, and definitely the coloring did not help a lot. The art wasn't horrible. I suppose the coloring wasn't horrible, but neither one made it add up to very much. So a very strong story and art that didn't do a lot for me. And I hope the person I saw on Twitter was wrong saying this was the end of Savage Sword of Conan. This is the final issue, but I haven't looked into that yet. It kind of makes sense though, because there's no continuing story here. It's just an anthology. They can always start up an anthology whenever they want, and Marvel kind of likes to play the continual having new number ones. So hopefully they'll get back to kind of this anthology approach to Conan, because I think he's really well served by one and done or 3-issue stories or occasional 5-issue stories, but and well served by letting different artists do their takes on Conan, even though I did not like the art in this issue. So that was number 9. In at number 8, this is a shock because this is usually in my top 3, often my number 1, the Immortal Hulk. We are up to issue 28, and it's actually, in knowing comics, it's pretty amazing to have 28 issues, all of which, or almost all of which, were extremely good. Artistically, this is the dreaded fill-in issue. Joe Bennett's art, that is such an important part of Immortal Hulk, is not in this issue. And there's 2 fill-in artists. I'll get you their names in a bit. Actually, I don't know which one is which. So there's one that has this very simple style, and it's not too bad. There's another. This page is another page of the same artist. It's not too bad. It's not too exciting either. But then when that artist finally has to draw the Hulk, let me show you. I thought his Hulk was incredibly weak. And so his art overall is a very flat experience. Nothing by way of exciting panels or different angles and ways of drawing things. So not. I mean, I can see that he or she has kind of an indie style, and maybe thought it would be fun to inject that in part of the story. Now, the other artist. So the first artist did a sort of the human side, a story about a security guard working for Roxxon. And the other artist did the parts that were all about the leader of Roxxon, who is the Minotaur. And I keep forgetting. So that artist's work was much better. And I think the coloring was much more exciting for his work. What is his name? The leader of Roxxon. Anyway, he's very horrific, and he's being bedeviled by the Hulk, who he took a contract out to hunt down the Hulk. So this confrontation with the Hulk and Roxxon is kind of fun. So along with not liking the art of the stuff about the security guard, I also felt like it was kind of take your simple blue-collar man and make him into a total loser jerk. And I just that didn't click well with me. I didn't feel comfortable with that story, and was just sort of saddened by it. So where all this, as this fits into the larger picture of the whole Immortal Hulk saga, I might raise my opinion of it. And again, as I say, everything starting with Conan at number 9 was all stuff I enjoyed. I definitely enjoyed reading this. It just wasn't at the level that I'm used to thinking of Hulk. So this came in at number 8. In at number 7 was Valkyrie. A great story about gathering a team, kind of like Justice League Dark, gathering a team to go on some dark mission. In this case, to heal death. There's something wrong with death. And Valkyrie leads a team that includes Dr. Stephen Strange and Night Nurse. And who are the others? Cardiac, Excalibur, and Mannequin. And I don't know a lot about most of those people, but especially Cardiac. Cardiac and Mannequin. I don't think I've ever heard of Mannequin, actually. I've heard of Cardiac. And this is a different Excalibur to me than I was thinking of. But really well written, really fun concept, and a fun utilization of the concept. The gathering of the team and the venturing into the unknown of the lands of death. And very suiting to the idea of Valkyrie, who still can see people's deaths. So, there's an example down at the bottom where this is what death looks like to her. Some people's death is small, some is big. Mannequin has several deaths hovering over him. So lots of intriguing little details that hopefully will play out in future issues. If the art suited the story more, it probably would have been ranked even higher. But it was definitely one I enjoyed a lot. So it came in at number 7. And all of these were really hard. Like, should I put Wray ahead of Valkyrie or behind it? Is Valkyrie better than the Hulk or not? Than Conan? I don't know. It was very hard to tell. So here we have Wray. This is the pre-order variant. Not too excited by the variant. And I saw they showed all the covers somewhere in here. Where are they? Excuse me a moment. Oh, there we go. None of these covers, there's the main cover there. None of these covers do any sense of storytelling about what this is about. They're just posters of the character Wray. And it kind of makes me sad because there was a really interesting story in here about Wray and Raikou, or whatever his name is, his little sidekick, coming across the remnants of the past, a kind of ideal home with an AI that manifests as this kind of happy homemaker, stewardess-looking character who takes care of you all the time. And technology gone wild, she's just has spent hundreds of years waiting for someone to take care of. But Wray and Raikou are looking for some kind of other AI that they want to destroy. I forget what they're called, the outcasts or the pardon me, too much flipping around. Offspring. This is the offspring of some bad guy. So the background of this story I still don't know, but I can follow what's going on and I can get the essentials. But the backstory of who the offspring are and the whoever the offspring comes from, the bad guy. Let's see. I think they meant the Red King. So anyway, it was a really well-told story, kind of both a one-and-done and a continuing story, which is pleasing. It's kind of... I got some marks on here. Anyway, sometimes you notice things when you're doing them on video that you didn't see before. It's kind of like those old TV shows where someone's on the run or on the road, and as they're searching for the man with the answers or the trying to escape the people trying to get them, or like the Hulk just drifting about, they have a little adventure on their way, and then they move on to the next adventure. So, find this really pleasing. It's written by Dan Abnett and art by one of my favorites, Juan Jose Ripe. And I'm still getting used to his change in art style, but I'm still liking it. Maybe not quite as much as I used to like his old art style that used more hatch marks and lines. So that was up there at number 6. At number 5 is The Undiscovered Country, the next chapter of the story by superstar writers Scott Snyder and Soule. What's his name? Not David Soule. It'll come to me. Here we have it. Charles Soule, of course. I think the art's growing on me here, and the coloring, of course, is very good. It's by Matthew Wilson. And the story is developing. It's this weird science fiction story, and it's developing nicely. It is very familiar feeling in the sense of what a lot of Image science fiction comics are like, with the heightening tension, the sense of horror, the feeling of there's no way out of this problem, and then the twist that makes it even worse at the end of the issue. And it made me think of a lot of Rick Remender's work. It made me think of Birthright from Image and some other comics. But that's not a put down. I enjoyed it. It's kind of a good formula. And they're doing a good job of making me very interested in this character who was from America before America got shut down and has been trying to get back to America. And now he is back. But there's some good flashbacks. And I'm hoping that the flashbacks and such continue to sort of flesh out the whole world that these people come from, along with the world of this weird future United States that they're starting to discover, the undiscovered country being the United States. Oblivion Song. There's not a lot to say about this. It continues to be strong, a fun read, great art. I just keep saying that every month, and that continues. And I feel like I continue to feel like it gets better and better. It's improving with age. As the story unfolds, there's more to it, not less. And Robert Kirkman does a great job of moving forward the story just the right amount each issue. He takes his time and he makes sure a lot of stuff sinks in. And at the same time, still have the continual problem of can't keep track of all the characters. They look a little bit too much alike. They aren't tagged well enough. However, a writer in a comic book does that to remind you who all the characters are. They just kind of assume you remember all these characters by their first name, and I struggle with that a bit. Okay, and then at number 3, Batman's Grave. Another Warren Ellis was my worst comic and one of my best comics, because another Warren Ellis comic, Trees, was his other one that I did not like. Kind of sad that I'm liking the one from the big commercial press with Batman. I mean, everyone does Batman. But Warren Ellis is doing a good job here, and he has a great co-conspirator in Brian Hitch. Inked, it should be noted, by Kevin Nolan, who used to be didn't Kevin Nolan used to be kind of a big artist? Has he just decided to become an inker? So maybe a lot of the quality of the art is Kevin Nolan's as well as Brian Hitch. Although I think Brian Hitch is the type that does very full pencils, if I'm not wrong. And wonderfully colored by Alex Sinclair. Let's see. That's probably a hard page to color. And you can see here, it alternates between moments, lots of silent panels, especially when there's fight scenes. And then I feel like I'm kind of repeating myself if you go watch the video that I did with Bob. And then when those silent moments are over, very text heavy, still more. There's a lot of silent panels, but they all work. They're telling the story. Then you get very text-heavy discussions that show the detective work being done. So it's a very physical comic and a very cerebral comic at the same time, with Batman very clearly a human-sized adventurer who's a great detective and is willing to tussle with people in fights, but could easily get hurt. So each issue seems to be drawing a new sort of mystery into the web of mysteries. I feel like I'm going to have to reread all 12 issues eventually to decide exactly what happened. So, there we do get that sense of Warren Ellis doesn't give you everything. In Trees, he just didn't give us enough at all, or didn't give me enough at all. I think other people may be perfectly happy with Trees, for all I know. In at number 2 is my biggest surprise of the week in terms of where I ranked it. I had the miniseries Symbiote SpiderMan on my pull list. It was written by Peter David, art by Greg Land. I liked it okay, but I was never over the moon with it. And then it was done, and I thought that was it. And then my shop, apparently there's a new Symbiote Spider-Man Alien Reality, written by Peter David, art by Greg Land. And I was really pissed after when I got home and realized, I've also paid an extra $1 for it. It is quite long. And as it turns out, I loved the story, and even the Greg Land art is growing on me, I think. It works pretty well. It's still not the best art to go with the humorous flavor of a Peter David script, but the superhero action and things like that, I thought were done really well. And so, I kind of grimace to say that Greg Land is a good artist for me, at least in this issue. But that's true, even though I've moaned and groaned about Greg Land many a time. He's even channeling a bit of his Brian Hitch side, I would say, at times. So that's cool. And what it is it's a story where Peter Parker's Spider-Man is still inside this symbiote suit. We know from the previous miniseries the symbiote suit's doing stuff that Peter does not realize it's doing, like when he's unconscious or something, it'll continue the fight. That happens here, and then somehow they slip into a different reality where his loyal sidekick is Kraven the Hunter and where he is dating Natasha, who was the Black Widow, but who is in this reality the Black Cat. And so there's Hobgoblin is the Sorcerer Supreme of all things. So very cool stuff and very readable. I really enjoyed it. I was very surprised. I mean, I'd hoped when I picked up the original miniseries by Peter David that I would enjoy it this much, and it instead was kind of middling. So hopefully Peter David will keep the steamroller going of this story, and it will be this satisfying all the way through, because I thought after I took it home and I saw the $4.99, etc., that I was going to immediately write my shop and drop it. But now I have to keep reading, which is what these people should want to do when they're creating what these artists and writers should want to do when they're creating single issue comics. And finally, my number one, by quite a long shot, was the Dollhouse Family. I haven't talked about issue number one because I got that late. So I kind of read issue one and issue two, one after the other, and they flowed kind of seamlessly. This is the creative team behind the original early 2000s Lucifer, behind the Unwritten, and behind the Highest House. And they're doing a really great job here. You know, my hat's off to Joe Hill for recruiting them for his pop-up line at DC, which is rightfully marked Black Label. It's very adult. Even though our main character is a child, it's kind of, the stuff that's happening to her is pretty mind-bending and pretty horrific and dark. But never outside of, you never feel like, oh, this is just horror for horror's sake. It's a story that has horror in it, that's horrific. And it's also a fairy tale, and it's also a multi-layered tapestry of story. Because we have the kind of backstory of this fellow 100 or more years ago in Ireland who had an encounter with the strange entity that's looks like a giant buried under a mountain, which somehow leads him to decide to marry his nurse here. And the nurse is supposed to be barren, but then they have a child. The child has the same name as one of the people who in the present lives in the dollhouse. So we're starting to get some of the threads pulled together. I won't tell you a whole lot more. Our heroine is living in an orphanage. Her mother is in prison because it's assumed the mom killed her father, although we know that's not the case. And then worse things happen. And you've got your bully at the orphanage who you love to hate, and luckily ends up having a bad fate. Sorry, that's a bit of a spoiler. There's really cool stuff like this diagram of the dollhouse. So, yeah, really cool story. I have a hard time describing it, but it's definitely Peter Gross and Mike Carey at their best. The artwork, I think the artwork is kind of loose drawings by Peter Gross, and then they're finished up by Vince Locke. And there's a colorist here, Chris Peter, who I feel does a very good job both creating the mood and telling the story. You don't have to go with the darkest colors in the world to make this a horror story. I hate those comics where the darkness just resolves into murk and you can't see the line work. Here we can always see the line work. The lines and the colors work together wonderfully. So anyway, I am so excited to read some more of the Dollhouse Family. So that's it. I've gone on a long time as usual. I made poor Bob's video get very long with all my blathering. But it was worth it. We had a good time. So I'll talk to you all later, either in the new year or maybe I'll fit in a video or two before then. Bye-bye, everyone.